Hello, everybody. It's time to do UFC Shanghai recap. I did not do a prediction video, but I did, if you want to check out my picks anytime there's no prediction video, it's over on Twitter or possibly Blue Sky in the future. And you can obviously see, sort of, if you need proof, you can see it there. So in terms of picks here, I got Aljamain Sterling correct, Sergey Pavlovich Sumudarji, Tailake Nurinjali? Nurinjai, I think is how it's pronounced. I got Charles Johnson. I was tempted to pick Charles Johnson, but I didn't end up doing it. I got Rong Zhu. I got Yiz Ha. I got Su Young Yu. So 7 and 5 on the night, which is a relatively normal one. I do think that I had some picks correct that were... How should I put this? They were wrong in terms of result, but I think I nailed the kind of dynamic and the elements of it. Case in point, Charles Johnson versus Loder Kavanaugh. I thought Kavanaugh was winning the fight up until, getting knocked out, unfortunately, which is something I was debating thinking because, obviously Charles Johnson had that win over Joshua Van, and this was kind of a similar type of matchup. And otherwise... Mingyang Zhang versus Johnny Walker, that kind of went how I expected it to. It's just that at the end of the day, well, let's kick it off. The main event, Zhang versus Walker. Walker showing terrible wrestling. Oh my God. Horrible shots that basically saw him face planting in front of Zhang and getting lit up a fair bit. And really, 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 really looking ugly early on. Looking like he's probably going to get finished in very Johnny Walker fashion. And clearly losing the first round. And then round 2 comes around. Walker's working the low kicks. There were many theories going on Twitter, obviously, and I'm not an expert on anatomy. I'm not a particular expert on leg kicks either. Obviously, I can throw them. I know how to counter them. I know the basics, but there are, suggestions anywhere from a complete knee blowout to a nerve getting shut off. And I was under the assumption that I thought the leg looked significantly damaged, but he did end up walking away without terrible issues. I don't know. But either way, the leg gets compromised. The leg gets shut down. Walker ends up on top of Zhang and is just beating away at him. He's dropping bombs, outlanding him significant strike-wise, 41-8 in the round. Massive, display of power, and eventually the referee has to step in and stop the fight. Did we learn anything from this fight? Which is, I guess, kind of the downside here, because the action was good. It was a fun, messy, scrappy fight, but with high-level athleticism, so it does kind of feel like a UFC level fight. But the problem is I don't really know how much I've learned. Johnny Walker is no longer working with SBG Ireland and is settling in with Extreme Couture in Vegas, and that's a good move. Maybe. Extreme Couture is so weird because they have the opposite ends of the spectrum. They have fighters who are really smart and come up with really good game plans with the coaches. And the coaches always say the right things in interviews and corner advice and everything. And they also have fighters like Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, Roman Dolidze, who are absolutely useless in terms of any kind of game plan or in-fight adjustments. So it's a weird gym in that way. But, Johnny Walker has the skill set to... not even really the skill set. Johnny Walker has the physicality to be a pretty high-end 205er in terms of how dangerous he can be in fights. And it's never been directed properly because when he came to the UFC, he was training with basically nobody. We see this a lot in the 205 division and at heavyweight. Guy who's a good athlete, fighting a bunch of guys who are not very good athletes, looks amazing, bunch of first round finishes. UFC brings them in. And we quickly realize that they are very much a large fish in a small pond. That was Johnny Walker. And then he went to SBG Ireland, and they... Number one, I do not think SBG Ireland is a good gym. I think their reputation got exceptionally advanced through Conor McGregor based on nothing that they were actually doing for Conor. That was the funny thing is Conor McGregor was always talking about training with all these guys who were not SBG Ireland. Bringing in coaches, training partners, bodies to work with that were not part of the SBG core, but we kind of give credit to SBG Ireland for his career. And second, they had no idea what to do with Johnny Walker's skill set. frankly, and mentality. They were trying to make a neutralizer out of a guy who has the length of a neutralizer, has maybe some of the physical gifts of a neutralizer, but in no way, shape, or form has the brain of a neutralizer. So in that regard, this was a better fight, but like at the same time, it's also Zhang being a complete glass cannon. And I guess that was kind of like the only thing I didn't like about the matchup was we're getting a main event that had Zhang won. I wouldn't have learned anything. And we were getting a main event that if Walker won, theoretically, we were probably not going to learn anything. And I end up with the same questions about both guys I had coming in. I know Zhang can be finished. We've seen it from way like non-UFC caliber fighters. Like that is the nature of his career, frankly. Like there's a reason he's, got 7 losses here. Don't mean to be terribly recordy about it, but like the guy has knockout losses to guys that the UFC would not consider signing, including Askar Mozarov, the guy who basically lied about his record, got absolutely destroyed by Alonzo Metafield and immediately cut, and like the UFC was super embarrassed about it. Like he has a win over Mingyang Zhang, and he's offensively potent. So he did his thing in the first round. He almost got the finish in the first round. I think maybe not too many times in the first round, but he looked good, and then his lack of defense fell apart. And he got leg kicked, and the leg shut down, and then he got finished. And I don't know. His ceiling is the same. And the concerns I have about Walker remain. So, didn't really learn too much about it, but hey, it was fun while it lasted, which is more than I could say for the co-main event, which was 5 rounds of Aljamain Sterling jabbing and periodically working into combinations or wrestling Brian Ortega. He landed 153 strikes. That's cool, but like it felt bad. And it probably wasn't helped by the fact that Ortega blew the weight cut and looked like an absolute zombie before the fight. And it looked like there was no reason he should be in there. And this fight went... I don't want to say this fight went like I thought it would, because honestly, I expected more I expected more violence. But Ortega is completely washed at this point. He is maybe still a dangerous grappler, but I don't like. It's been a long time since his last actual submission or like particularly good performance as a grappler. Like he had the win over Rodriguez, obviously with the arm triangle back in February 2024. But before that, you're looking back at Cub Swanson back in 2017. So like his striking game does not work. He doesn't react to shots well. He never really had a really comprehensive striking game. Like it was really just that one fight was Zombie, where his striking looked particularly good. But he can't really strike, can't really wrestle. Maybe he can still grapple, but I don't even know how much I feel good about that. But like his next fight better be at 155, or better yet, a retirement. I'm just saying. There is no such thing as retiring too early. And Sterling called for a title shot afterwards. That's not happened, bro. This was a boring fight. And I say this as someone who does not hate Aljamain Sterling the way a lot of people do for the Peter Yan win and so on. And I find most of his fights fairly entertaining. Like if I were to say like what are Aljamain Sterling's like top 10 fights, like there's nothing stunning there necessarily. But in terms of like bad fights, the only fights that I've not enjoyed of his are this one, the fight against Calvin Kattar, just because it was a sad moment for Kattar, and he got ragdolled, he got beaten up. But aside from that, like the fight with Henry Cejudo, that's a fun fight. The fight with Movsar Evloev was fine. The fight with Sean O'Malley, the fight with TJ Dillashaw sucked, but that was because of TJ Dillashaw and the whole fighting with a shoulder that was completely done. But like everything else is fun. Like there's no problem with any of his other fights. Like it's fine. There's a little bit of frustration about his game, and it reared its ugly head here. But you're not getting a title shot off of this. Like you did just lose to Evloev, who the UFC is doing everything in their power to keep away from a title shot because he fights kind of like you. Like that. Sorry, it's not going to work. Also, Johnny Walker calling out Jan Blachowicz. Dude, the only thing you do well is low kick, and Jan is really, 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 really good at punishing kickers. That is a bad idea. Further on down, let's see here. We had Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Picked Pavlovich, more or less for the reasons stated. Cortez Acosta has maybe like the potential to beat a guy like Pavlovich, but like his problem is that there's not really anything to his game outside of pocket striking. And like if he's going to step in the pocket with Pavlovich is going to hit him. And he did. And I expected Cortez to survive because he is very, very durable. All the negative things I have to say about Waldo, dude has a cement head. But yeah, he didn't really have any way of like competing with a guy who could just out pocket punch him. Like it's a limitation of his game, frankly. And also another limitation is that he can be taken down kind of like not that difficultly from that position. Even like Spivak did that. And of course, the loss to Marcos Rogerio de Lima was a good example of that. But like everyone else, it's just guys who can't really wrestle. Even Chase Sherman took this guy down. But I guess that was the only surprise. I thought at some point maybe Pavlovich would get a takedown. But every time they actually engaged in the clinch in the medium range, Pavlovich would land the harder shots, and also, apparently, according to UFC stats, he landed more of them. So, yeah, got the win. There were some moments where Cortez Acosta showed off what he can do to win the fight by just staying at range and throwing at a really, really nervous-looking jab, but like you could tell he was very, very uncomfortable doing that, and as a result, he kind of entered the danger zone quite frequently. Sumo Jarji versus Kevin Borjas, I had Sumo Jarji here because I will, generally speaking, pick anyone who's not really, really top end against Sumo Jarji unless they wrestle. Because that has been historically his problem. People who can bully into medium range and then like actually get wrestling going. And there was nothing about Borjas that suggested he could do that. And as a result, I made the pick I made. And turns out I was right. Sumo Jarji was able to stab him at range and outstrike him there. And there were moments for Borjas, certainly. It was not a bad fight, necessarily. But like he ended up landing single digits, significant strikes in each of the 3 rounds. And only 1 round did he land double-digit strikes, that being the second round. And his takedowns were useless. He went 0 for 5. So, yeah, pretty heavy win for Sumo Jarji, and I'm not super surprised about it. A lot of people were. There was a lot of people who were loving on Borjas, and like, I'm sorry, having a good fight with Joshua Van early is kind of thing that everybody does against Van. Like, it takes him a little while to get into it, and then the second and the third round were more like what you could expect from Borjas, and he got beat up badly. And he got stopped by Alessandro Costa. And he beat Lazy Boy Rodriguez, who is just structuralist. Rodriguez gets away with what he gets away with by being really strong and powerful. And if you can take his hits and counter wrestle a little bit, you actually probably can win. And that was how that fight went. So I thought people were a little bit too up on Borjas, but hey, I do hope that he does something because like there's some base play power there and some good pace. And some good counter ideas also on the table that I'm hoping to see. And also a pretty good frame, 5'5", 68 inches for flyweight. That's not bad. But he is now 1-3 in the UFC. And granted, to one of those losses to Joshua Van, but the other 2 are against Sumo Jarji and Alessandro Costa, who are not super great. So I don't know. We'll see. They put him on the main card here, so theoretically they have faith in him. Kiefer Crosby versus Tailake Nurinjai. I'm going with that. I really don't know how to say this guy's name at all. These guys were both can crushers. Essentially, they've never beaten anybody good. Nurinjai was making his UFC debut. He comes out, he wrecks Kiefer Crosby for quite a bit. Then he illegally knees Crosby while he's down. And this has obviously put a lot of discussion on the table because people are blaming Mark Goddard. I think really just the blame here is the structure, because if you read the refereeing guidelines, I'm sorry, but the stoppage of a fight really isn't on the referee in that situation. It is on the fighter to say, I cannot go on, which is wrong. I do not think it should be like this. Or on the doctor to rule out and give the advice that the fight needs to be stopped, that this fighter cannot continue. And the doctor did not give that. Now, could Goddard have called him back in to look at Crosby pertaining to a concussion rather than the visible damage of a cut? Yes. But I suspect that the doctor would have also probably let it continue. And we would have gotten the beat down anyway. So he takes 2 points away, and then Nurinjai just beats him up some more, and that's really it. I don't know what this means for Nurinjai. He's aggressive, he's got some physical talents, he's got very good size for the weight class, but he just hasn't fought anybody. like when it comes down to it. And it's a common regional issue, obviously, that people come into the UFC and they don't necessarily have a lot of talent or useful wins behind them. But this guy just kind of absolutely blows people out of the water. Round 1 stoppage, round 1 stoppage, round 1 stoppage, round 2 stoppage. There is a fight with Kwai Wong, who has 10 losses coming into that fight that went to the 3rd round. That's not a great sign. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah, round 1 every week before this. So this guy's been out of the first round on 3 occasions. And yeah, nobody is at all good. I don't know. It's very, very messy, but it wouldn't be the first guy who's like exceptionally messy and it still carries him away. I do suspect that there's going to be a reality check at some point where he just, his sloppiness gets capitalized on because the physical delta is not high enough to carry him to victory. But it wasn't going to be Kiefer. Himself is a guy who absolutely needs physicality, who needs a physical advantage to win the fight. So that was why I picked him there. I picked Mahashate. I scored it live for Mahashate, and I was getting shit on. I will hold my hand up. It was totally right. I don't know if it was the early nature of the fight. I just was not appreciating the volume that Gage Young was working at. I just was not. This is one of those fights that I look at the UFC stats at the end and go, man, what was I watching? What was I watching? And y'all landed at 112 to 66 in significant strikes, 139 to 79, or 131 to 79, pardon me, in overall strikes. So yeah, and he had a couple of takedowns that didn't really lead to anything, but yeah, he had them. It's a good performance for Young. I think even in my psychosis of scoring the fight against him, my big concern with him was that his regional fights are, I'm big, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to just break you down. Doing kind of the same thing over and over and over again. There's not really any not really a solid game plan or adaptation to his game. And it would work. And he was capable of not self-destructing if it wasn't working, but he would just keep trying it again. And that was the Evan Elder fight in a nutshell as well. This fight, I'm not going to say he showed a lot of creativity, but there were variations. There were things he did, and at least he also picked the pace up that allowed him to get the win. So he is getting better, and I also do think kind of Mahashate might be getting worse. Mahashate is now 1-4 in his last 5, and the win is over Gabriel Benitez, which is a problem. But yeah, he's also lost to Rafa Garcia, Nicolas Bada. Yeah, it's not good. It's not looking good. Not looking good for him. And then the fight of the night for me was this fight between Loney Kavanaugh, and Charles Johnson. Kavanaugh was looking good. He was looking exceptionally quick. He was outlanding Johnson early. He was dictating the fight. When Johnson brought the wrestling to him, he had the counters ready, and he out wrestled Charles Johnson. Emphatically took him to the ground and did things to him in that second round. So it looked really, really good. And then he got tired. And it was the second round. And the hands were a little bit too low. Head a little too stationary. And he was also kind of admiring his work a little bit, which is something he does tend to do. And Johnson just came through and belted him and put him down and did the thing. And continues to be an absolute spoiler of a guy because, like I said, he's beaten Joshua Van. But he also had that win over Asat Maxim when Maxim had a fair amount of hype going on to him. And then he had a kind of a crappy fight with Ramazan Temirov, which Temirov did win, but not as well as you would like to if you're the UFC and you're trying to promote him. So the UFC maybe doesn't want to put Charles Johnson up against guys like this anymore. But is there an immense amount of potential in Kavanaugh? Absolutely. But I think this loss could potentially be good for him. Now, what I mean by that is that a loss often can be incredibly informative and reinforce some problems that were there. And with Kavanaugh, it's always that there is a tendency to watch your work a little bit of a tendency to insulate yourself by being really, really fast, which he is going to be really, really fast. It's not like this guy's not blazingly quick, even by UFC flyweight standards. He is, but there's got to be a little bit more defensive structure. There's got to be a little bit more. There's got to be a little bit more of a defensive idea of, okay, what if that guy can hit me? How do I block that? How do I present a target that is shifting and moving so I get hit less hard? And obviously, I do have a little bit of a worry about his cardio because for a flyweight, and I want to be clear on this, specifically for a flyweight, Lonnie Kavanaugh's pace does not seem to be that high. Like, if you look at his fights with Felipe Dos Santos, and you look at his fight with Jose Ochoa, he lands 58 significant strikes, 71 total in the Dos Santos fight. He lands 51 significant strikes, 51 total against Ochoa. Those are not especially high numbers for flyweight. And now we didn't see him gas at either of those fights. Although, well, I don't know. I might need to go back and watch the Dos Santos fight again, because apparently, just looking at the numbers, it does look like he kind of lags back in the Dos Santos fight in the third round, and just kind of relies on his wrestling, which, carries him through. But how do you do in the other one? Even the Ochoa fight's a little bit low in the third round. Okay, maybe there is a bit more of a pattern here than I'm thinking. So there might be a little bit of a cardio issue. And again, I want to say this. At flyweight, that is a huge issue. You need elite cardio at flyweight. There's just no way around it. That's the nature of the beast. So he needs to focus on defensive striking. He needs to focus on fighting people at more physical parity. And he does need to prioritize probably getting to the point where, like, he doesn't get tired like he's been getting tired. Again, he's not a gasser. He doesn't fall apart. But this is flyweight. We have Joshua Van. We have Brandon Royval. We have Brendan Moreno even. Steve Erceg even. Pantoja. Charles Johnson. These are all guys who can push a very significant pace when they have the opportunity. And there are other guys I would throw into that as well. It's like it's a factor of the division that you need to be ready to deal with. We need to get that he needs to get that pace up to the point where, like, he could, if he needed to, land like 100 significant strikes at a high rate over a 3-round period. So hopefully that's an informative loss for Kavanaugh, and it doesn't just completely ruin it. Austin Hubbard didn't really have anything for Rong Zhu in their fight. Rong Zhu outlanded him, I think, in all 3 rounds. He shut down the wrestling game. Pretty much there were 2 takedowns on 12 attempts, but they totaled 1 minute and 2 seconds of top control. So yeah, couldn't match up to him. Does it mean great things for Rong Zhu? I don't know. He's got a fan-friendly style. He's got some athletic ability. I don't want to poo-poo on him, because somebody was engaging with me and being like, no, I'm a big fan of Rong Zhu. I think there's a high ceiling here. I'm like, I don't know. But he is convincingly winning against Cody Steele and against Austin Hubbard. So let the run go, I suppose. Although I do think that Cody Steele win is more just about Cody Steele's absolute limitations as a fighter. But we'll see. And even this loss is about, like, Hubbard being one of the slowest 155ers on the roster. Kyle Daukaus knocked out Michel Pereira. I picked Pereira. I'm not surprised he loses. Like, I think I summarized it to a buddy while I was watching the fights. I said basically, I will never bet for Pereira, and I will never bet against Pereira. He is chaos incarnate. The physicality to beat anybody in the division. Nobody is safe from him. But he is safe from nobody. And that includes Kyle Daukaus, unfortunately. So, congratulations. Welcome back to the UFC, Kyle Daukaus. A lot of people were crapping on Kyle Daukaus being back in the UFC. I'm not excited about it, but I don't really have a problem with it. Like, his fights in the UFC were generally pretty, like, entertaining, all things considered. Like, I liked his fight with Kevin Holland. I liked his fight with Brendan Allen. That was a really good fight. I liked his fight with Dustin Stolfus, as much as I'm going to like any fight with Dustin Stolfus. And, like, Velaz was not too bad either. So, yeah, I mean, he's a limited guy. Like, he doesn't have super high grade physicality, and he's a little bit small for the weight class. Like, he's got the height and reach and the frame of middleweight, absolutely. But, like, at the same time, there is a I mean, he's very, very thin. Like, there's not a lot to him. So there's always going to be like and the fact that he's like predominantly a grappler is obviously going to be a problem there. Yeehaw defeated Weston Wilson. I don't care. Weston Wilson shouldn't be in the UFC. His entire career, even before getting to the UFC, indicated that should not have been the case. Somebody was like, put it up, like, imagine going to Shanghai, getting paid 12 grand to just get knocked out and get destroyed. And it's like, I can't feel bad for him. This guy, even looking back at his regional fights, like every step of the way, maybe aside from like the first 3 fights where he went 3-0, has been the gods of MMA telling him that he's not actually cut out for this. Like, that this is not actually what he should be doing. This is not what's on the table. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Yeehaw is also not very good. I think the difference is that Yeehaw is not very good because he's just poorly built, and like with a good coach, he could probably actually turn that around and get something done. Whereas with Weston Wilson, the problem is just that dude does not have the physical tools of a UFC fighter at all. You could give this guy the best coaching on the planet, and he's not going to be good enough. And yeah, so different ends of the spectrum. Su Young Yu, I was surprised, got the win against Long Zhao. I said this, I was scoring this kind of like assuming that the judges would kind of screw up because like Long Zhao was getting a massive crowd reaction for like everything he was doing. So I was worried that that would carry the day, even though I thought Yu was winning. I just didn't think he was winning by enough to overcome the hometown advantage, the atmospheric advantage. But yeah, he outlanded him in the second, the first round. Third round was Long Zhao's round. He came on really strong. 52 strikes landed, 41 of them significant. He did a great job in the third round. Came on hard, but he's a bit of a mess. And Su Young Yu is kind of again, the opposite end of the spectrum here, where I do wonder when it comes down to it if he has that little bit of chaos. Like, I know it's weird because I crap on the fighters that are really chaotic and really structuralist and really unpredictable, but you do need a little bit of that. You need you need that dash of that in there. And Su Young Yu is like very, very, very textbook, very predictable. So that's a problem. Speaking of unpredictable, we got an Ezekiel choke to open up this fight. This fight card. Uran Saltabaldiev, who I did not pick. I wanted to pick Saltabaldiev. My first, I should have listened to my gut here, because my first thought was that Saltabaldiev came in and fought Martin Budai, who got cut from the UFC, but is, by heavyweight standards, not a bad fighter. And he came up a weight class, and he looked really competitive. Whereas Dr. Nergozhai lost to Brenson Hibaro, who I do not think much of. I have to admit that he's exceeded my expectations by like winning anything, but I still don't have high expectations of him. But DR was the guy I was high on when they signed him, and I was not high on Saltabaldiev in the same way. I wasn't ashamed Saltabaldiev was here. I wasn't like, this is not a UFC level fighter, but I just thought, action guy to throw into the 205 division, the soup that is 205, the chaos that is 205. And DR was like, no, this guy's actually quite good. There is a considered counter-striking game here with good power grappling, strong, can work some takedowns, has a good jab, and maybe it's just the twitching from the, I assume, Tourette's, which I can relate to because that's me, that got me on his side. And I was like, no, we got to go with DR. We got to go with the guy that I was high on. We can't jump off the bandwagon just because he lost to Prince Hibaro. I think I have to get off the bandwagon because he got dropped and thoroughly outgrappled by Saltabaldiev here, and Ezekiel choked. Like, there is nothing. There's nothing to talk about here when you get Alexei Olenek by anyone but Alexei Olenek. So that's not good. This might be the end for him. I assume he'll have more fights. He'll have like probably 2 more fights because he's probably on a 4-fight contract. That's the standard off Contender Series. But Unless he's fighting someone really, really bad, I don't think I'll be picking him in his next fight. Although, to be fair, this is the 205 division, and really, really bad fighters are kind of on the table. They are very much options. The other 0-2 guys in this division are quite bad, so we'll see. So those were the fights. I made a lot of money, actually. Despite going 7-5 on the win-loss record, the guys I was betting on picked it up. I think there was a lot of kind of just sort of stupid odds on this fight card, and I took advantage of that. So I'll be back with predictions for UFC Paris, the Imavov versus Bahayo card. Looking forward to this one reasonably. I mean, it's a main event that has a lot of, like, you know, interesting appeal, and also just in general feels like very important. Could determine a next title shot at 185. Then you got Mauricio Hoofy, who, despite the fact that I generally dislike the flashy knockout guys, and I do dislike it in Hoofy's case, I am interested to see what he'll do against Benoit Saint-Denis. Other than that, Faris Siam is on the card, and for a change, I'm not picking against him. I must resist the urge. My random dislike of Faris Siam needs to be put a stop to here. But that's on the card as well. What else is good on the card? It's nothing else I'm like loving on that card, but there's enough. Like Mason Jones versus Pelagioki, that's a fine fight. Bukauskas versus Craig, that's a fine fight. Omar Sy versus Brinson Ribeiro is continuing to see if Omar Sy can be like something very good. Fakhretdinov and Andreas Gustafsson could suck or could be an absolute classic. And I don't think that there's a middle ground. I don't think there's a middle ground at all for that one. But yeah, I'll take that. I'm fine with that. Kennedy Freeman was supposed to be on the card. That's Ian Freeman's daughter, the Machine 2.0. She was supposed to be on this card, and her opponent pulled out. Wait, what was she doing getting booked against Eunice Dubin? Is she fighting a flyweight? Is she going down a flyweight? I thought Freeman was a bantamweight. Bantamweight. Yeah, okay, she was a flyweight back in 2018. So I guess it's not crazy, but I don't really see why you wouldn't just fight at bantamweight. It's a wasteland division. It would be really, really easy to run up some hype. But, well, that one's not on the card anymore, which is a shame. But that'll be all. Everybody check out the links down below for my social medias, my video gaming stuff, which I'll be streaming Tuesday and Thursday, Super Mega Baseball on Twitch. You can enjoy that, or you can enjoy MechWarrior 5 Clans over on YouTube. And, of course, other places you can find this if you're like, hey, I really like hearing this guy talk about MMA, but I'd like to do it on a different platform. Maybe I have that covered. So take a look.